The paradox, and a fearful paradox it is that the American Negro can have no future anywhere, on any continent, as long as he is unwilling to accept his past. To accept one's past, one's history, is not the same thing as drowning in it. It's learning how to use it. An invented past can never be used. It cracks and crumbles under the pressures of life like clay in a season of drought. How can the American Negro's past be used? That's from James Baldwin in The Fire Next Time. These are the same questions I ask myself. What does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be African American? Why is it that all around the world the darker peoples are more oppressed? Why is it because the color of my skin, I am at a disadvantage? How did it end up this way? And how, and this might be the most important question, how can we remedy that? The revolution began with voodoo. Haiti was the first free black nation in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti was the first nation in history that was established by a slave revolt. That victory has served as a beacon to black people that we could break free of the chains of bondage since it happened. At the time of the revolution, all of the developed nations were terrified that this would cause slave revolts on their plantations and in their countries and in their states. Hundreds of years later, we still look back at that and wonder, how did that happen? What was the cause? While much of the success is due to the military strategy of the leaders of the revolution, a large portion of the success has to go to the fact that all the rebel factions were allied and united. And this has to do with the voodoo priestesses and priests. Voodoo had been hidden in the Catholicism that they were forced to practice on the island. But over time, they just began practicing voodoo. Voodoo enabled the slaves to break away psychologically from the very real and concrete chains of slavery and see themselves as independent beings. It gave them their dignity and enabled them to survive. So they became emboldened by this concept, they became emboldened by this idea, and they became united in the idea for freedom. There's a power in unity. And that's why the Haitian Revolution still to this day serves as such an inspiration to those looking for equality and freedom. When I learned about this, it made me question myself. It made me question, maybe I don't really know my culture. Maybe I don't really know who I am. So I went on a journey of self-discovery. I wanted to learn more. How do we get here? How do we get to this place? So many of us don't even want to look back at the history because we think it's all negative. We think it's all bad. We didn't begin as slaves. This is where voodoo comes in. Voodoo runs parallel to the black experience. Voodoo comes from Vodun, which is a West African religion. Now, there are many West African religions, and there are many African religions all throughout the continent. But voodoo is interesting because it traveled with the people. Now, many of the enslaved peoples came from West Africa. Now, I say enslaved peoples because they weren't slaves, they were free people. They were doctors, musicians, lawyers, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. They weren't slaves, they weren't less than human. It's important to remember that because that's how voodoo travels. That's how voodoo ended up in Haiti. That's how voodoo ended up in America. America has an interesting thing it does with black people. It demonizes us. That's why when you hear the word voodoo, you think of demons and black magic and evil spirits. Because that's the story they told us about it. That's the story they tell us about ourselves. You think of a black person, you think of a thug, a criminal. Even if you're black, that's the messages that they've sent to us. One of the things I wanted to do with this project was to open a dialogue, begin a discussion, at least make us think about where we come from. At least make us think about the images we see of ourselves. I want us to begin to critically analyze what it is this country has done to us. This is the first time in history that we're actually able to build for ourselves in a meaningful way. But we have to begin to One, heal our trauma, recognize who we are, and have unity. Unity can come from a belief system, that's very true. But what is the belief system we're going to use? What is it going to tell us? These are the questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves in the future. Now, a lot of people ask me, Kyle, you practicing voodoo? I'm not going to, that's not what this is about. This is about asking the question. This is about the journey of self-discovery. I was learning a lot of new information, and I was having these really in-depth conversations with the people around me, and I wanted to document those conversations because we were talking about how all of our history and all of our experiences are seen through this lens of white supremacy, this lens of this historical inaccuracy of ourselves. We've never seen ourselves through a black lens. We've never seen ourselves from our own perspective. It's never happened, really. That's kind of what the whole project is about. So as an artist, I took this concept and I poured that into my music. As an artist, I decided that the music was not enough to tell this story. I realized that a 3-minute song isn't going to be able to encapsulate all the information and all the conversations and all these ideas that I've been having. So it had to be bigger than that. And that's how this whole project was born. The VooDoo Man Project is a multifaceted, multimedia experience. It's a docu-series. It's live interviews with a bunch of really interesting people from the community that are doing great things. It's an album, but it's also an interactive experience where every third Monday I'm going to be releasing an episode, and we're going to release it live so you can comment and talk to me. After that, I'll also be going live so we can continue that conversation. It's my hope that this will really create a dialogue and we can build a community of people that are like-minded and want to see things change in a better way. If you're with that idea and if you're with that concept, let me hear you go, woo! The VooDoo Man is coming, bro. Voo.